Hey guys, welcome back to ASURE, and in today's video I want to talk to you about how to maximize your chances of getting into investment banking and other lucrative finance jobs by talking about the ideal candidate profile that all investment banks are pretty much looking for. I'll be discussing things such as GCSE subjects all the way to what to do when you're at university. Now if that sounds interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button so you get notified whenever I post. Now I just want to stress that just because you may not necessarily fit this profile exactly doesn't mean that you cannot get a job in investment banking, and similarly even if you do have this exact profile doesn't mean that you're guaranteed a job in investment banking either. Now without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Now there are no GCSEs that you have to take in order to get into investment banking, but I do think from my own experiences there are one or two that have helped me along the way. And one of those is GCSE Business Studies, which I know does get memed quite a lot, but in my opinion I found it quite useful, and that's because GCSE Business Studies talks through things like debt and equity, corporate structures, variable and fixed costs, and mergers and acquisitions. And now these are all concepts that are applied day to day within the world of private equity and investment banking, so it's quite good to get a grasp of them to some degree when you're quite young. It just means you're a lot more comfortable when it comes to the actual application process further down the line. Now what's a lot more important is probably the grades that you do get at GCSE level. And that's because if you look at the average person who works in investment banking, they tend to have been high performers throughout their education. And so that starts with a string of 9s and 8s, or A stars and A's in the old system, when it comes to GCSEs and A levels. In maths and English in particular, you probably want to be getting at least a 6, or what was a B. So while your GCSEs and A levels might actually be the thing that the investment banks look at the least, your GCSEs and A levels are basically the building blocks or the foundation that everything else is built upon. For example, it's a lot easier to get into investment banking if you go to a top tier university. It's a lot easier to get into a top tier university if you have good GCSEs and A levels. Again, I just want to stress that it is possible to get into a top tier university with average GCSEs, but you have to put in a lot more work at A level. So if you want to make the process as easy as possible for you, it's recommended that you just put in the effort from the very beginning during your GCSEs itself. Now at A level, I do think subject choice matters a little bit more than it did at GCSE. So investment banking and private equity are both pretty quantitative jobs. You need to be quite comfortable with using and applying numbers. And so I'd say A-level maths did help me in this regard. By no means is A-level maths a necessity. I know plenty of people who didn't take it who are now working in finance. However, I do think it does help your problem solving and critical thinking skills, which are both key qualities that investment banks are looking for in an individual. Similarly, economics, again, is not a necessity to get into investment banking, but some of the concepts or themes that you cover, such as economies of scale and monopolies and how regulation works, are things that, again, are discussed within the world of private equity and investment banking. So you do well to get exposed to these concepts pretty early on in your education. So while not necessary, I do feel that A-level maths and economics would help you to get into investment banking in a roundabout way. Finally, and of course this is my own opinion, but I do feel like an EPQ or an extended project qualification could help you if you take it on something that's finance related. If you do a finance related EPQ, it can give you a lot more confidence during the application process, but it could also give you something to talk about during your interviews or your cover letters. However, the major caveat is that I would only recommend you do an EPQ if it's not going to affect your ability to get good grades in your other 3 or 4 A-level subjects. The other thing is that taking certain subjects can improve or worsen your chances of getting into a high-ranking, prestigious target university. And we'll come on to that term later on in this video. For example, LSE has a list on their website of their non-preferred subjects. So if you were to take one of these A-level subjects, you're at a disadvantage. So there used to be this concept called facilitating subjects, which were basically the subjects that universities most often had as requirements in order to get onto their courses. And these were things like A-level maths, English, the sciences, or something like history and geography. And now, while the term facilitating subjects has been scrapped, I do think that these subjects are pretty useful in the sense that they're pretty safe bets. You can't really go wrong if you've taken any of these. One common myth that I'd like to dispel is the idea that you have to take economics or finance at university in order to get into investment banking, and that really isn't the case. I've had friends who've done things like chemical engineering or geography at university who've still got offers from investment banking and have even done really well once they've joined. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that your university matters more than the degree that you do. Now, this brings me to the concept of target universities, and these are basically universities that investment banks actively try to recruit students from for their spring weeks, internships, and graduate roles. You'll find that these investment banks put on a lot of on-campus networking events at these universities, and I don't know this for sure, but you might be looked upon more favourably when you're first applying to the bank as well. In effect, the fact that you go to one of these target universities is a clear signal to the investment bank that you are smart, intelligent, and probably quite capable of doing well in an investment banking or finance role. Now, at this stage, you're probably asking what universities are actually considered target universities. Now, there's no hard and fast list. Different people will tell you different things. I think the universities that most people will quite firmly agree on are Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, and LSE, with Warwick and UCL also quite often being thrown in there. For other universities that are a bit more contested, are called semi-target universities. An okay-ish proxy for, semi-targets might be something like the Complete University Guide's top 10 universities for economics. Now, if you were to ask for my personal opinion on semi-targets, I've noticed that the University of Nottingham and the University of Edinburgh seem to do really well in terms of placing their students into investment banking, but some other good names or reputable names are Bath, Bristol, Exeter, and Durham. So that brings me back to A-level grade requirements. So for all the universities that I've pretty much just mentioned, they all tend to have quite high A-level grade requirements, nothing normally lower than AAB. So if you do want to improve or maximize your chance of getting into investment banking, aim to do really well in your A-levels. One thing I'd really recommend you should start doing as early as possible is bolstering your CV with work experience. Ideally relevant work experience. Firms like to see a well-rounded individual. If you could choose between someone who got good grades but had no extracurriculars and someone who got just as good grades but also had a million things that they were doing on the side, which person would you be more likely to recruit? As I say, with work experience, you want to try and make it as relevant as possible. Now, the best way to do this when you're still in the sixth form is to apply for insight days that are hosted by the investment banks themselves. Now, there's a website called the Student Ladder where you can find a list of all the available opportunities, and another good website is SEO London, which you should check out both to see what's available. However, make no mistake, these insight days are very, very competitive. You'll need a good CV and a good cover letter prepared for when the applications open. Now, I do plan on doing videos on all these separate topics, but if you want immediate and personal advice on how to get through this, make sure to look at my business, ASURE.uk, where I offer successful CVs and cover letters, and also have a team of qualified consultants where we can help advise you and walk you through the entire application process step by step. The other way to get work experience is to just try and reach out to local businesses. For example, even getting work experience at the local accounting firm will give you some useful insights into how a cash flow statement or balance sheet actually works in the real world. And that will help you when it comes to your investment banking applications when you're in university. Right, congrats, you've made it all the way to university, but you don't rest on your laurels, you've still got plenty of things you need to do. Obviously, you should aim to do as well as you possibly can, but I'd say that the bare minimum that you should be on target to get is a 2-1. In fact, getting a 2-1 is often a minimum requirement as part of people's graduate offers. However, if you go to a non-target or even a semi-target, you need to basically give the investment bank no reason to reject you. And so you need to really be doing well or excelling in your academics. Unfortunately, if you do go to a non-target, you are at a disadvantage relative to people who are applying from a target university. So in order to make up for it, you need to be excelling academically. But say you do go to a target university like LSE, you can't just rest on your laurels and assume that you're guaranteed to get a spot into investment banking. No, this is the mistake that I made, and it cost me dearly, and it resulted in me getting no spring week offers. Again, banks are looking for well-rounded individuals. They're looking for people who have displayed leadership, non-academic excellence, and drive. And here's how you can show each of these to them. With leadership, get actively involved in a university society, for example, and take a leading role. For example, apply to be the president or treasurer of the society, because this shows that you can lead from the very top and effectively delegate and organize. It also shows that you have a vision or that you can quite effectively manage your time outside of university by taking on such a big responsibility. Non-academic excellence could be things like playing sport outside of university or playing music, or it could be things where you show off your creative side. For example, you could have a blog or you could have a YouTube channel like this one, just something that shows off a bit of flair to the investment bank. Effectively, you need to show that you have a diversified set of interests and don't just excel at academics only. For drive and ambition, try to get relevant work experience, ideally at a reputable or large firm. Think your spring weeks or your internship offers. However, small firms are fine, especially if you're just in your first or second year at university. Other things you could be doing to show drive and ambition are charity work, starting your own business, for example, or doing online courses. The investment banks are basically looking to see that you are proactive in your spare time and aren't just sitting on the couch all day during the holidays, for example. So if you do all of these things and also write a good CV and cover letter, you'll be well positioned to succeed in your investment banking applications and hopefully get offers for your spring weeks, internships, or graduate roles. So that concludes the end of this video. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comment section down below what else you'd like to see. If you'd like to see a video where I talk about the realities of working in private equity or what private equity even is, why don't you check out this video here. Thanks guys, and see you soon.